You are listening to the Body Charge podcast, and I'm your host, Sandy Sanderson. Welcome to the Body Charge podcast. Today's topic is escaping the stress of chronic pain. We tend to forget the body is biology and not a metal machine with fixed components like your car. If something goes wrong or goes out of alignment or out of tune, we can experience a lot of pain from that stress, wear and tear, which also causes magnesium depletion, further weakening the electrical nervous system and metabolism. My special guest today is Dr. Alex Hilario, founder of Chiropractic Rehabilitation Source in Yonkers, New York. With over 21 years of experience in chiropractic care, Dr. Alex helps patients overcome chronic pain, avoid surgery, and reclaim their quality of life through an holistic, faith-rooted approach to healing. So welcome aboard, Dr. Alex. Lovely to have you on board.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. What led you to the world of chiropractic care in the first place? What attracted you to this profession?
Well, I was a pre-med student and I was interested in healthcare for sure in undergrad. And then as I got closer to graduation, I started shadowing different types of doctors and, medical doctors, dentists, psychiatrists, and a chiropractor. And I was really impressed with what he was doing, mostly because it was, manual treatments that were able to help the patients live a better life. And there was no real side effects with what he was doing. And I thought that was pretty amazing. And I decided to go for it.
Yeah, it's often the case that we're influenced by certain significant people in our lives, these turning points. And I guess we're all driven by what works. Not often do we get on the right track straight away, don't we? Need a little bit of trial and error and a little bit of negative experience ourselves to then go, well, that didn't work. What went wrong? What can I do differently? Different to drugs and surgery, which sort of is at the surface of our standard medical system, either numb it and dumb it or, cut it. But very rarely, they do sometimes do look at nutrition if it's an integrative kind of a doctor. But most of the time, it's just, numb the symptoms, do something quickly, usually quickly, maybe not these days anymore, but something that will address a crisis point. So with chiropractic care, as I see it, you're looking at the root of the problem that causes the pain. And specifically for this podcast, we want to address chronic pain. So normally you have an injury, your immune system is supposed to kick in and, clean up the debris, kill the bad bugs, the bad bacteria, whatever's come into that space. And then heal and repair by building new cells, and you're good as gold and the pain's gone. So pain's there to tell us something's wrong and needs to be fixed. And this is the signaling system of the body, right? So what happens with chronic pain? Why doesn't the body get over the line to fix the problem and make the pain go away? Why does it persist?
Well, I think the immune system has the ability to fight a lot of um, interferences, but sometimes it's a little bit more than just a bug or a virus. It's mechanical. Like if your spine is out of alignment, and we have to consider what the nervous system does. So you have your brain, your spinal cord, and then all the nerves that branch out, and those nerves go to every cell in your body. They go to every organ in your body. There was a pathologist that studied over 200 cadavers, and pathologists are doctors that specialize in studying the tissue to try to figure out what the diagnosis is. And he found that with the cadavers, every time there was a pinched nerve, there was organ damage. And the more serious the pinched nerve, the more serious the organ damage. So when we look back, we have to consider what's happening with the nervous system also. If there's pressure on the nerves, there's going to be organ damage. Some part of your body is going to be sick if there's irritation on the nerves.
So they're kind of these invisible wires connected to the vertebrae, to the bones, to the structure of the body. So what we're talking about really is environment, isn't it? Where so the body has self-healing processes and the DNA and the body knows how to heal a cut and things like that happen automatically. We just have to take care of the environment, don't we? We have to clean it up, cover it up, do certain things to make sure that that space is ready to be healed and the body does the rest. So, in a sense, if something is pinched or out of alignment, if the structure of the body is not in alignment and that we squeeze the nerves, then we're changing or interfering with the signals that the brain receives from the body. So then it can't heal or can't address the problem. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. There was a Nobel Prize recipient, a neurosurgeon, who also found that when we lose the normal curvature of the neck, that stretches the spinal cord and it leads to disease. So we could have a lot of health issues that are stemming from the spine. So it's important to restore motion to the spine, correct the curvatures there. So you're not stressing the spinal cord, you're not stressing the nerves that go to the different organs.
Yeah, it's in a sense when someone breaks an arm or a leg and it's put in a cast, it has to be straightened up before it's put in a cast. It has to be repositioned, and you can't put it in a cast in its broken, twisted state, right?
That's right.
So we're doing, and so that's a very dramatic example, but in a sense with chiropractic, you're doing something similar. You're putting that spinal structure back into alignment. And then how do you stop it from going back out of alignment if it's been used to that for a long time? Isn't there something to do with muscle memory that keeps pulling things out of place?
Yeah, so some studies have suggested that in order to make permanent change, we have to be anywhere between 30 and 40 visits of treatment. So it takes a while to correct this so that you create this new position of your spine. But once you get there, that's the new position, then that becomes a new memory. Things like, trauma, falls, bad posture, they can throw things out of whack, but it can be corrected to the point where you're not getting irritation on the nervous system and your body's able to function to the best of its abilities and you're able to reach optimum health.
So optimum health. So how do you assess what optimum health looks like in a person? How do you first of all diagnose where the cause of the problem is? What things do you do when someone comes to see you for help?
So we're looking at the range of motion within the segments. Each one of the joints in your spine should be moving individually. We look at a number of things. We check your reflex, the sensation, the strength of the muscles to see if there's any irritation on the nerves. Sometimes we'll do more aggressive tests like EMGs, which kind of send an electrical shock through the nerve to see if the nerve is being pinched anywhere. Sometimes we'll do x-rays to look at the spine to see if the vertebrae shifted anywhere, if there's loss of disc height within the spine, and MRIs also, which kind of look more at the soft tissue like the disc to see if there's any herniations there. There's a lot of tools that we have to diagnose and to treat effectively what might be happening with the spine.
So it's also more difficult with people that are aging as well because they may have calcification, they may have lost some spinal fluid that gives us that shock absorbing capacity. Um, the disc structure can be compromised. And so when you're doing an alignment or adjustment, how do you address someone who's like got the sticky joints because they're kind of too dried up or you can't actually align them properly for a while because there may be irritation caused due to the lack of the fluid, the cushioning?
Yeah. So when you're restoring movement to a joint, even if it's damaged to some degree, that allows nutrients to get within the joint, and it's going to help improve the patient's condition. Sometimes, the bones will fuse, and at that point, you can't really restore motion. It's been ignored too long, and the body has adapted to that, and it's created some stability by growing out and fusing itself to another vertebrae. So you don't want to wait when you're dealing with symptoms. First there's dysfunction, then there's a pain. and then you kind of eliminate the pain, and then finally you eliminate the dysfunction. So you if you're in pain, you're already at a point where you're behind the eight ball. You want to address that as soon as possible. You don't want to wait a decade or two dealing with the pain and just kind of putting a band-aid over it by taking over-the-counter medication and moving on with your life, because things will get worse over time.
They do, they do. And also, if we get stuck in the wrong position for too long, we kind of avoid using that area of the body. And if you don't use it, you lose it. You kind of lose that flexibility as well. So there's a cascade of problems down the track. And then you can risk having muscle and ligament issues, can't you? Because they look to compensate. So you might have a pain in your shoulder on one side, but it's coming from the other side of the body as it kind of twists, because some people have a scoliosis anyway, sometimes from birth. And there's all this compensation happening in the spine. So what kind of things would you do to help those people?
We look at the entire body. If somebody's complaining of back pain or leg pain, we'll look at everything. We'll look at the joints below, above. We'll kind of address everything. Um, so we want to make sure that, since the patient is there, we're eliminating pressure on the nervous system. We're restoring motion everywhere that we can, and we're helping them live their best life.
Yes, restoring motion is very important. So when if people want to avoid like getting fused in the wrong position for too long, what kind of things should they do in their lifestyle practices to keep their body flexible and well and healthy and lubricated and full of hydration? Because you mentioned the moisture in the discs supplying that cushioning effect and protecting the nerves is vitally important. So how can people maintain the best lifestyle to support their spine? Because if you don't support your spine, you're really shortening your lifespan a lot, aren't you?
Yeah, you want to do everything you can. Sometimes we can't control if there's trauma, if we fall, or if we have a car accident or something like that. Sometimes we have jobs that require us to sit for a long time, and that can put a lot of stress on the body. But you definitely want to take time to stretch and to exercise and to drink plenty of water and to eat healthy and control the things that you can control. Integrating chiropractic care is a good idea, even if you're not in pain, just because they'll be able to restore motion where you may have a lack of motion and figure things out, clear things out before they become an issue, before they become painful.
Yeah, because we live in our modern world, a lot of us in front of computers for 8 hours a day. And then we go home and we sit again. So people are in a sedentary lifestyle a lot of the time, don't move their body enough, or maybe they do go to the gym, but you can also do some damage if you don't exercise the right way either. So, what kind of posture is the best posture for people that are at the computer? Should they be standing at the computer or sitting or having a particular kind of a chair or the position of the screen? What kind of things can they do to make sure that if they are working all day long at a computer, that they do the best things that they can to maintain flexibility?
Yeah, you want to be in a fairly neutral posture where your feet are flat on the floor. You have some lumbar support for your chair. You're looking straight ahead at the monitor, and the keyboard is low so that you're not shrugging your shoulders. But the best thing to do is to stand up every hour if you can, or have a desk that can go from standing to sitting position, and you could alternate. Movement is ideal because our tissues have limits. So, we can look down at the cell phone for, a specific amount of time, but, eventually we'll start developing neck pain and headaches because we've been looking down so long. And that's because we're stressing those tissues beyond their limits. So paying attention to your body and moving and not holding a certain position for too long is ideal.
Yes, and also what about certain practices like yoga or Tai Chi? the stretching type exercises that help people keep their flexibility and the muscle integrity. Do you recommend that also for lumbar support?
Yeah, I think stretching is great because it does help to keep range of motion in the joints, specifically the hips. When we're sitting too long, we're shortening the hip flexors, and stretching those is going to help. Um, but strengthening is also equally important because, we have joints that are open joints, like our shoulders, our hips, and when there's instability there, that could lead to a pinching in the shoulder, and then pain, and then you're tearing a rotator cuff muscle. So strengthening is equally important.
Yeah, you can just maybe have even the wrong pillow. Maybe you're traveling and you're in a hotel and the pillow's too high or too low or something's wrong and you wake up and you have that stiff neck and it doesn't go away for a long time. So is that an indication of things are already getting stiff and you become more vulnerable?
It
Or
could, yeah, it could be the position on how you sleep because we're laying down, especially if you're one of those people that doesn't move, you're laying down for 6 to 8 hours. Um, that can definitely stress the joints, especially the disc, because you're not really activating your muscles, but you're pressing on the disc in a certain position. So the ideal position to sleep in is face up with a little bit of support on the neck. You don't want a big pillow, you want a small pillow that's just supporting your neck and not really lifting your head. You want your ears to be aligned with your shoulders.
yeah, I like to sleep on my side, so I use my pillow to keep my head straight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the second best option where you're
Yeah,
you're kind of aligning your head with your spine. You're using a pillow between your knees too to kind of open up the pelvis. You don't want to rotate too much in your lower body.
yeah. I do find myself twisting and turning a lot in my sleep while I'm sleeping. I'm kind of like half aware of it sometimes. But it feels good because my body automatically knows it needs to stretch. I find myself stretching in my sleep. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah,
Pro- Probably because I've had some yoga training in the past and there's some muscle memory there.
yeah.
It's in the autonomic nervous system. If you've done something enough times, it becomes automatic. So, what other things can be done, perhaps with diet and nutrition, to help support the nerves and the structure of the body, the bones?
Nutrition is important because if you're consuming a lot of processed foods, you're going to be in an inflamed state all the time. So you want to kind of stick to the things that are not processed. Your fruits, your vegetables, your meats, your drinking plenty of water to help your body receive the micronutrients and the macronutrients that it needs, and not be inflamed all the time.
Yeah, inflammation is a big problem these days, and that's actually what causes the pain because something's swollen and pushing and creating a pressure. And so there are a lot of anti-inflammatory diets out there. There's a lot of conflicting information as to what works and what doesn't. Obviously, we're all different and we have different genetics, and one t-shirt doesn't fit all. But could you give an example of a typical type of anti-inflammatory diet? What things should we avoid most of all?
I think my general rule and what I teach my kids is that if it grew, naturally and you didn't have to, put man into it, then you're good. You know, um, when man is into it, we try to be more about taste and less about nutrition. So, your stuff that grows right out of the ground, your vegetables, your fruits, and meats also, because I feel like it's important to have that protein, that iron. Um,
Yeah,
but the
balanced.
stuff, yeah, the stuff that man makes, there's nothing wrong with having it. You just want to limit the amount of that you consume.
Additives, yeah, because there are a lot of chemical additives or
That's right.
synthetic ingredients that you don't find in nature naturally.
That's right.
And the body doesn't know how to deal with it. So it can become a waste product that gets stuck in the body. It's not broken down. sometimes difficult to come out of the body and it builds up over time and then that affects other systems. But what I've found in talking to different practitioners and reading and research is that sugar is the biggest problem that triggers more and more inflammation because those dense carbohydrates and grain can, flour and products made from flour can behave like sugar in the body as well. So all of those dense, tightly packed carbs, not necessarily so much the natural vegetables, but the tightly packed carbohydrates are a big trigger to more and more inflammation due to the anaerobic metabolism of the carbohydrates. And so they create a lot more waste products, more acidic, more of an acidic environment. And then those acids attract pathogens and bacteria, um, microorganisms that like that environment and start to grow and cause problems, which is a cascade of problems, in metabolism and gut health. And then there's the gut-brain connection, the nervous system. The nervous system has sheaths made of cholesterol that help transport your electricity, your bioelectricity around the body. The nerves need to be protected by good fats. But when you have too much sugar or dense carbs, you start to erode your good fats, start to erode your proteins. They can disassemble. So you can get disintegration in all of the proteins of the body as well, including bone, skin, hair, nails, teeth. So if the inflammation persists too long, your body gets exposed to way too much acid. We just fall apart faster, to put it in a nutshell.
Yeah, it could definitely affect the body and break down, the body over time. The seed oils, the sugar are the big culprits that we want to avoid. The good fats are important, your avocados, your butters, that's fine to consume. But you definitely want to try to avoid the processed stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a big issue is magnesium deficiency these days because the processed foods have, first of all, the soils are quite depleted, so we don't get enough in the food in the first place. And secondly, processing causes a lot of washout of the magnesium. So we're not getting enough from the food supply, generally speaking, to replace what we lose under stress. So anytime someone's had an injury or stress or work shift work or works out a lot at the gym, there's several, or have sleep problems. There are several kinds of different stress. All of them cause magnesium loss in the urine. And the lower the magnesium, the weaker the immune system. So the immune system then tries to deal with whatever issues pop up, but can't quite get over the line. It can't get the job done properly. So then you have a persistent inflammation that can't solve the problem, but keeps getting stimulated. And as you restore the mineral balance in the body, particularly with magnesium, because it's the master mineral electrolyte, then the other systems can get the electrical fuel that they need, the bioelectricity produced in the mitochondria, to then do their job properly. So all the systems in the body eventually start to benefit. And magnesium brings water into the bones, and we need that little bit of extra hydration for flexibility. So if you fall, you don't break straight away because when bones get too brittle, you're more liable to break if you fall. Um, so there's a big cascade that happens just from diet. Without even having an injury, you can start, deteriorating significantly with the wrong kind of diet.
That's right. That's right. And if you're having, processed foods for breakfast and lunch, and maybe you want to try to have a healthier dinner, you've already filled up on these processed foods. So you're only getting so much of the macronutrients and the micronutrients that your body needs. So you definitely want to prioritize eating healthier, with every meal. Your protein, your vegetables, your fruits.
So you're recommending people go and get a chiropractic checkup if they're not sure of how things are going, Because you may not actually have a chronic pain, but could there still be an alignment problem causing other issues, perhaps digestive issues, for instance, because the vagus nerve is the longest, biggest nerve, and it's responsible for how the digestive system works, from your esophagus to stomach to small intestine to large intestine, that whole tube. If there's something, if the nerves aren't signaling properly along that system, then you may also have a lot of digestive problems as well.
That's right. It's a good idea to integrate chiropractic, even if you're not in pain, just because you want every joint to move properly. You don't want to wait until you develop pain because you'll have the dysfunction first, the lack of movement, the imbalances there. And then the pain comes later after your body's like, okay, we can't do this anymore. We need to focus on this. That's why we're
Yeah.
sending signals.
So
Yeah.
first
So,
of all, it starts to whisper,
yeah,
whisper in your, and if you keep ignoring the whispers, it starts to hit you over the head with a big bang.
that's right. That's right. So, it's a good idea, even if you have hobbies where you're playing sports or you sit at a desk job for 8 hours a day, you definitely want to integrate chiropractic care.
For good balance. So it's good to have a checkup because you're more integrative, looking also at diet, lifestyle, everything that you're doing in a day from day to day. And so then you can help to correct that so people can live well better, right?
Right. That's right. You can, live the best life, if you're taking care of all the things that you can take care of.
Yeah. That's what it's all about, making sure our body has the best environment to express the best of itself, without being hindered or blocked by anything.
That's right.
So if people want to connect with you, where should they go?
You could go to my website, chirorehabsource.com, or you can follow me on Instagram, Dr. Alex Hilario, on Instagram.
Fantastic. We'll put that at the bottom of the description under the video. And yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Alex. It's been a really interesting podcast, and I'm sure people will relate to it as a form of making sure they have a better lifestyle to keep themselves in the optimal condition for the best performance. It's not about waiting for the pain. It's about what can you do to avoid and prevent the pain coming
That's right.
and to age well.
That's right.
Yes,
Uh,
stay juicy and flexible.
yeah. Yeah. And, integrating exercise as well, is going to be very beneficial. The nutrition, the exercise, the chiropractic care, it'll definitely help you feel great.
Yeah, it's a more holistic approach.
That's right.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right, Sandy. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I hope you liked this conversation and will share it with others. Let me know what you thought about it in the comments below. If you want to listen to other Body Charge conversations, click like, subscribe, the bell icon, and click all notifications. Subscribe to our newsletter to get updates on blogs, podcasts, videos, and magnesium special offers at electromagnesium.com.au. Relax, recharge, and recover.